This is section 1.5 on quadratic equations. The first one, we're asked to solve it by factoring. So we have x squared minus 13x plus 36 equals 0. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the box method. It's easiest for me. Put x squared in the corner, 36 in the other corner. And because the first sign is a negative and the second is a positive, that means both parts of factoring are going to be negative. So it will be x minus something, x minus something. And in this case, it's going to be x minus 9, x minus 4. It's going to give us negative 4x, negative 9x. Combine those, that is equal to negative 13x, which is our middle term in our original equation. Then what we're going to do is take each of those factors and set them to 0. So negative 9x equals 0, and not negative 9x. X minus 9 equals 0, and x minus 4 equals 0. Just flip the signs around, add a 4 or a 9 to both sides. X equals 4, and x equals 9. And that is the first problem. Number 2, we're asked to solve by the square root property, which is pretty easy. So basically, we have x minus 3, and all of that is squared, equals 16. So we're just going to square root both sides. And because the first side is already squared, then square rooting it is just going to leave us with x minus 3, which equals the square root of 16, which is 4. Add a 3 to both sides. X equals 7. And that is the second problem. Number 3, this is completing the square. And completing the square is weird and interesting. But anyway, first what we're going to do is just put the 6 on the other side. We're going to have to change the sign and add a blank. So it's going to end up being x squared minus 5x plus blank equals negative 6 plus blank. And what we're trying to do here is just create a perfect square. So in order to create the number that's going to fill in each of these blanks, we're going to take this negative 5 and divide it by 2. And have that squared, which ends up being 25 over 4. So in each of these blanks, we're going to plug in 25 over 4. So what we end up with is x squared minus 5 over 2x plus 25 over 4 equals 1/4. And that's the answer once we add this together, negative 6 plus 25 over 4. Then we're going to factor this. And this is going to be pretty easy to factor because we know that each term here is going to be this original term, that 5 over 2, or negative 5 over 2. So x minus 5 over 2, x minus 5 over 2 equals 1/4. And from here, we can use the square root property. So x minus 5 over 2 squared, square root. And then same here, square root of 1 over square root of 4. So we're going to be left with x minus 5 over 2 equals the square root of 1 over 2. Switch the side, switch the sign. X equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 1 over 2. And that is our final answer. And then for the last problem, we're going to use the quadratic formula, which is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we're going to plug all these numbers in. Negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 64 minus 4 times 12. Because a is equal to 1, we don't even need to include it in our formula. All over 2. Again, a is 1, so 2 times 1 is still 2. I'm going to combine like terms and get negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 16 all over 2. And 16 is going to become 4. So then we're going to do negative 8 plus 4 over 2, which is equal to negative 2. And then because it's a plus or minus equation, we're going to do negative 8 minus 4 over 2, which equals negative 6. So our final answer comes out to be x equals negative 2, negative 6.